Why don't we call it... We'll call it the Jules Verne. No, we could call it the Einstein. Now that's a great name. Oh, come on. What do you want to call it? The Roy Swenson?
Well, I have an idea.
And what's that?
How about the Thunder Road?
Explorers was released in cinemas in the States on the 12th of July 1985, but wasn't released in the UK and international markets until December 1986. It was produced on a budget of between $20 and $25 million, a box office flop upon its release, taking only $9.9 million worldwide. However, it attracted a cult following with its VHS release. It was the first movie to be co-produced by Industrial Lights and Magic and Paramount Pictures and was directed by Joe Dante, coming off the successes of his 1984 classic Gremlins. Dante's noted films are the 1978 Roger Corman-produced Piranha and the 1981 horror classic The Howling. He would go on to direct another underappreciated 80s cult movie with Inner Space in 1987. The movie was originally to be directed by Wolfgang Petersen, having impressed Paramount execs with the success of The Never-Ending Story. Petersen wanted to film it in his native Germany. The studio decided on an American director, and Petersen was asked by 20th Century Fox to take over the troubled production of Enemy Mine instead. The plot follows Ben Crandall, a teenage boy who is experiencing strange recurring dreams that see him flying over what looks like a complex circuit diagram. Ben's nerdy genius scientist friend Wolfgang is also getting what appears to be the same dream, and the pair share the plans. Ben is rescued from the school bully and befriended by Darren Woods, who accompanies Ben to Wolfgang's basement lab, where he has attempted to create the circuit board. After a quick experiment, this produces a force field which allows travel at speeds, and the trio decide to make a makeshift spacecraft, christening it the Thunder Road, to go on an adventure to discover where the strange dreams and plans are coming from. Ethan Hawke stars as Ben Crandall. This was Ethan's first role. He initially didn't audition for the role and was picked randomly by Joe Dante. Since Explorers, he's had a steady and successful career, best known for Training Day in 2001 and Gattaca in 1997. Recently for working with Blumhouse on movies like The Purge in 2013 and Insidious in 2012. The late River Phoenix plays Ben's scientist and genius friend Wolfgang Muller. River later starred in 1986 Stand By Me and also in The Mosquito Coast with Harrison Ford, and later played him as a young Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade in 1989. Phoenix, not dissimilar to his character in Mosquito Coast, had grown up in the communes in South America, but was unfamiliar with pop culture. During rehearsals it became a running joke when he would attempt well-known phrases and words and pronounce them incorrectly. Phoenix was originally considered to play Darren, but Dante chose Jason Preston to play him. Dante thought he was good enough to play another role, so he cast him against type as the nerdy Wolfgang. However, he became embarrassed by his glasses and would constantly remove them trying to impress the girls on set. Unfortunately, River died tragically too young in 1993 due to a drug-related overdose. Jason Preston plays Darren Woods. Later he starred in The Lady in White in 1988. He only had a limited career after Explorers, turning up in Dante's sequel Gremlins 2 The New Batch, which is a shame as he delivers a great performance as the downbeat kid with parental issues. Amanda Peterson stars as Laurie Swenson, the affection of Ben's dreams. The American Girl Next Door, Amanda had a very successful career, starring in Annie and hundreds of TV commercials and several TV series earlier in her life. Unfortunately, she had a poor end to her life, having battled drug addictions and spending time in prison. She died in 2015. Dick Miller stars as Charlie Drake. Dick was another regular Dante player, having played in Gremlins, The Burbs and The Howling. Veteran actor James Cromwell stars as Mr. Muller in an early role. Many of you may remember him as Father Hoggett from Babe. Robert Picardo plays 3 roles as Starkiller, the alien Whack, and his father. Robert was a Dante regular, turning up later in Inner Space, and will be familiar to Star Trek fans as the holographic Doctor from Voyager. When Picardo was in full makeup and costume as the alien's whacking his father, his mouth was the only part of him not completely covered. To be honest, I didn't find it too convincing as a kid and slightly creepy. Picardo complained that his headpieces for whacking his dad were so heavy and uncomfortable they caused him injuries.
It's a very interesting story. It doesn't make any sense at all. Are you aware of that?
These makeup and creature effects were by Supremo Rob Bottin. Rob was noted for his work on The Howling and with John Carpenter on The Fog, and of course for his iconic creature designs on The Thing, and more importantly with Dante on the Twilight Zone movie, which I'll return to later. Cinematography was by John Horror. John had pretty much worked on all of Dante's movies. whilst giving this movie a familiar Spielberg look and feel. Music is by composing legend the late Jerry Goldsmith. Jerry uses a mixture of orchestral cues and electronic synthesizers. It's a great score that is massively overlooked due to the movie's lack of success. There are a few similar cues that Jerry later used in the Next Generation Star Trek movies, and one that sounds weirdly similar to John Williams' later score for Harry Potter. The song Wack performs for the kids is Little Richard's All Around the World. The film uses the original recording, however the soundtrack album included a re-recorded remix performed by the late Robert Palmer.
Jumping all night and all through the day.
The screenplay was written by Eric Luke, who has a cameo as Darren's teacher. Eric, an actor and director and comic book writer, wrote for the TV series Tales from the Crypt. Eric later worked as a writer on cartoon TV series like Gargoyles and the 2003 version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Apparently the script for Explorers had been circulated Hollywood offices for years before it was made, and that it was bought by the studio because of a scene of children flying through the air on bicycles appealed to Steven Spielberg for his film E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Dante liked what he read, but he didn't feel there was a third act. At the end, when the kids went to the planet, they go and play baseball. That was the plot. While discussing the script with Paramount execs, they said, "We can work on it while we're making the picture." Dante and Eric Luke were improvising what they were going to do while the film was being made. Dante said, "We came up with this sort of pop culture angle on it that we thought would be funny. Audiences didn't particularly." The movie was never properly finished. The studio demanded that Dante stop editing and rush for a July release, where it was overshadowed by the Live Aid concert, which was held one day after the film's release, and stiff competition from Back to the Future, which opened 9 days prior. The studio changed hands in the middle of production, and they decided they needed the movie much quicker, so the picture was shot under very hurried pressures. The paint on the sets was literally wet when the kids stepped into the spaceship. They sunk into the cement because it wasn't dry. The movie contains various references to science fiction features and much more. When the boys are hovering over the drive-in, the movie that is playing stars a space hero named Starkiller, named after George Lucas's original name for Luke Skywalker. The movie itself is a reference to the cheesy Italian Star Wars rip-offs like Star Crash. The sound effects from the Starkiller movie are from the Atari video game Yar's Revenge, and also there's a definite reference to Ralph McQuarrie's Star Wars concept art. Hawke's character Ben is obsessed with aliens and the movies surrounding them, and the two movies he watches during the film are This Island Earth, which follows a similar plot to Explorers, and The War of the Worlds. It came from outer space posters seen on Ben's bedroom wall, as a nod to production designer Robert F. Boyle, who has also worked on the 50s classic, as well as Hitchcock's North by Northwest. In fact, the whole movie is a love letter to the 40s-50s pop culture and Dante's love of cartoons. The children attend the Charles M. Jones Junior High School, named after Looney Tunes director Chuck Jones. Whack the aliens' first exchange of dialogue is of Bugs Bunny's famous catchphrase.
He's about to say something.
What's up, Doc?
What?
During the dreams when the children fly over the circuit board, some of the camera angles and moves are meant to mimic the flight of Neverland from Peter Pan. My personal opinion of this is when Eric, Luke and Dante were faced without an ending, they defaulted to what they know and love. The third act is where most people have issues with the film. It's a major disappointment and definitely subverts your expectations. It has always reminded me of Dante's segment on the Twilight Zone movie, It's a Good Life. Not only in production design, and there's something about Rob Botain's work there that feels weirdly similar, possibly due to the cartoonish design. If you're unfamiliar with it, it's a story of a boy and his family trapped in a cartoon-style world. You can also see similarities in the lighting and the feel of the spaceship interiors. Dante would later explore his passions for B-movies and cartoons in movies like Matinee and Looney Tunes Back in Action. Due to the rushed adject, there was about an hour and a half worth of footage that was left on the cutting room floor. Sequences had to be redubbed, including one near the end where the boys are under a tree, to give the film a sense of closure. In the driving scene of the young couple, the boy who calls the special effects fake is supposed to be Ben's brother. There was a whole family subplot that was completely missing. The character Charlie Drake was also supposed to return in the third act, hinting that his childhood had been plagued by the same dreams. If you look closely, you can see various old units on his desktop, hinting that he too tried to build the same units as the kids possibly. There's also a nice nod to Gremlins and the howling in the newspaper that the helicopter pilot reads, which unites the films. Many blame Explorer's lackluster poster and marketing campaign for his poor performance at the box office. Paramount execs responded, "It was a wonderful piece of material, but by the time it came out you felt as if you'd already seen it." The movie fared better in video rentals and cable broadcasts and garnered positive reviews from critics. This was my experience with the movie. I don't have memories of seeing any promo material of the movie upon its release, and I only discovered it much later on VHS. At first thinking it was a direct-to-video movie. Like most, I enjoyed the first 2/3 of the movie. It had a very familiar feel and certainly riffs on Spielberg. It's got all the ingredients for the teen sci-fi adventure: a group of high school kids, BMX bikes, backpacks and walkie-talkies, and references to 50s B movies. Like many, I felt the movie's third act was unimpressive and not what I was expecting. Although fun, it felt completely bolted on like another movie. With retrospect and knowing the pressures from the studio, it's understandable why the movie feels incomplete. There are many plot holes and issues with consistency. ILM's work is great as usual, but I'm sure was a little rushed, and some blue screen work looks poorly done. Also, the scale of the Thunder Road is a little off at times. One thing I can't forgive after my first viewing many years ago is the kids powering an Apple computer with a small 12-volt battery. Really? I've also noticed River Phoenix looks quite different during the scenes with Wack and his sister Neek. I doubt there was time for reshoots, so I'm not too sure why this would be, although he looks like he hit the catering vans a little hard possibly. Over time, Explorers has gained a well-deserved cult following amongst fans of Dante's work. Dante is appreciative of the warm reception it's earned over the years, but the problem for him is that the movie you see is not the movie he wanted to make. Dante said it's the movie he got to make up to a certain point, and then had to stop. It's hard for me to look at because it's not the film I had quite in mind. The missing and cut scenes are presumably lost as Dante tried searching for them in recent years. Some of the home video releases would be slightly recut to remove 2 scenes, where Wolfgang has an encounter with Steve Jackson and his gang of bullies, and a brief bit where the boys chase the tilt-a-whirl ride after they push it up the hill. These 2 scenes were reinstated when it was added to Netflix. A brief sequence at the end when Ben daydreams about the Thunder Road restored in the classroom was also added in some of the home video releases. Ultimately, despite its production faults, it isn't a bad movie. Even the poor ending is mildly amusing, even if Wack does come across a little annoying at times. For me though, there is little nostalgia for the movie. I don't count it as one of my childhood classics, but like many I've grown to appreciate it over the years. One for Goldsmith's cracking score and for ILM's great work on the visual effects. Also, the prospect that given the right treatment this could have been a classic of the era makes it interesting to view. I would highly recommend Explorers for those reasons. Moreover, I'm positive shows like Stranger Things wouldn't exist if it wasn't for movies like Explorers. You can only watch on DVD, unfortunately. There's no Blu-ray at this time of this review, which is confusing given the love for the movie. Surely it deserves a decent director's cut release. However, it is available to watch on HD purchase through Amazon.
Ready? Ready. Tight. Ready.
Check, check,
Will you
check.
stop checking? Let's go. Let's boogie.
Feel bad.
If you like my content and you would like to subscribe to the channel, please click the link below, and don't forget to hit the bell notification button to keep up to date with all my videos. Also, you can follow me on the usual social media, links are in my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you on the next review. Thanks a lot, take care.